How far do you think we should go with this?
Your amendment is very brief, so that's, I guess, a positive. The one thing that I heard loud and clear in the couple other times that I was before this committee was a desire to have there be some real specificity in terms of what map, what disclosures about flood risk we're talking about. And I attempted to address that in the last amendment that you have, which is 1208, by including language that says that, and it's on page 30, page 1, lines 30 and 31. Actually, it starts on page 2. So that we are very clear that it's the official flood insurance map provided by FEMA as of the date that the purchase and sale agreement is signed. And if the answer is yes to that question, then you attach a copy of that official flood insurance map. So I hoped that that would address that specific concern. The amendment that you've prepared, Mr. Chairman, doesn't get that specific. I mean, it just talks about, that it's in a flood zone. And so that seems to go against the direction that this subcommittee was going when I was talking. The other thing that I did in the amendment, in Amendment 1208, again, at the, well, let me just follow up on that. The one thing that is still in the Amendment 1208 is protection for a seller who relies on someone else to provide them with information about flood disclosure. That's now new Section 2 in the amendment. So that's still in there to provide that protection for sellers, which I think is a significant benefit. The other thing that the amendment does, which I think reflects a lot of the concern that was expressed by the subcommittee in previous discussions, was we've taken out everything relating to landlords and tenants. It's completely out, so that this bill only focuses on sellers. There was a concern also about, there was a concern expressed about having buyers kind of co-sign so that they are acknowledging that, that they know that there's a flood risk. What Amendment 1208 does, by including the language around flood disclosure in a purchase and sale agreement, that must be signed by both the seller and the buyer. So that closes that loop. So, I think 1208 is a tighter bill in terms of providing some real protection for buyers and sellers, and hopefully addresses the specificity that you were all looking for.
Okay, Representative McAleer.
This is a question for you, Mr. Chairman. You said you negotiated with the realtors. What exactly was their holding point?
They will speak next.
I'm sorry?
They will speak next.
They will speak now. All right. And just to clarify, the actual information on the flood insurance is not in the purchase and sales agreement. It's actually in the disclosure agreement. And the disclosure agreement is made by the seller and the seller's agent when the house is put on the market. So we keep referring to the purchase and sales. There is a question in the purchase and sales, but that's completed by the buyer. And the buyer is asking about flood insurance and flood, but again, that information has already or should have already been provided by the seller. So I just want to clarify that.
Right. So yeah, so this short amendment is amending what needs to be in the purchase and sales agreement.
I would have to agree with Representative Munn. I think his amendment is much tighter and really gets to the point as opposed to being a little vague, I think.
Well, but we're trying to get it to the purchase sale agreement, which was, as we decide, that's a more important document.
Mr. Chair? Sure.
Yeah.
The reason that the language on flood disclosure is included in RSA 477-4-A is that that's the RSA that's referenced in the
Correct.
purchase and sale agreement.
Right.
So what this is doing is adding flood disclosure at the same level, putting it at the same level of importance, hopefully putting it at the same level of importance as radon, arsenic, and lead, which are currently in the purchase and sale agreement.
Right. Okay. Any other? Yes. Representative Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Representative McAleer that the amendment, Amendment 1208, I think it is clearer than Amendment 1185.
Okay. Any other? Representative Burrows.
Thank you for taking my question. So where is the Realtor in terms of responsibility here? Is it lying strictly with the seller and the buyer and the people who provide the information in terms of flooding, et cetera?
It's really between the seller and the buyer, and I think there was a lot of discussion in the last subcommittee about third party this and third party that, and I'd like to thank Representative McAleer for hopefully kind of bringing us back to what we're really talking about. I mean, the responsibility that we're trying to create here it's the seller's responsibility. If the seller relies on someone else to help them get that information, realtor, professional engineer, or whatever, then that's up to the seller. We are providing some protection for the seller that in the event that third party, sorry to bring that up again, third party, does something incorrect or provides false information, that the seller has some recourse.
Follow up, please.
Further question may inquire.
Okay, so I'm still struggling. I don't remember Representative Spears said last time that the Realtor's making a commission on the sale on this. So I just a little struggling with the fact that there's, if they are representing the buyer, that there's no responsibility there for anything that happens as a result of flooding, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't know that I've got a real answer to that. I mean, the only thing I would go back to is that the purchase and sale agreement is signed by the buyer, the seller and the buyer. It's not signed by the agent.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Representative McAleer.
If I can make a comment on that, if the seller's agent knows something, they have to divulge that as well, not just the seller, but so, in other words, if the selling agent knew that this was in a flood zone, but the seller didn't indicate that, it would be the seller's agent that would have to disclose that.
But shouldn't the seller have the agents done some digging?
Repeat that, please.
The Realtor, shouldn't they have done some digging on their own?
I don't believe that the selling agent is required to do that. I think they would, if they're doing the right job for the seller, they might also look into it. But again, if they don't know information, they're not required to disclose what they don't know. But if they do know information, they are required to disclose it. I hope that answers that.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm clear, we'll start with the section 2 of the bill, which is obviously starts at the bottom of page 2, which is this flood risk disclosure. And do we have this kind of language for lead or arsenic or radon? I don't think so. Not this whole remedy section. In terms of, if you remember our public hearing, our subcommittee last time, was that we came down to, at the end of the day, is that if a buyer feels like they were given misinformation or lack information or incorrect information. You were trying to find some way that they could sue them, which obviously that doesn't really solve anything. I mean, in your mind it might solve things, but in my mind this just creates another lawsuit and a financial burden on that buyer. So I wasn't too crazy about that. And then when I look, if it's also correct, when I look at what you're doing, is that you're doing amending, putting all this language that is in 477 4A. Okay, whereas in terms of where I was looking in the statute was this was the 474D, Roman 1, where what was needed specifically to be in the purchase and sale agreement, whereas this is how the best I would describe it. This is sort of explanatory or knowledge giving or helping people to know what things they should know, rather than specifically saying. Whereas in this our amendment is what exactly needs to be in that purchase sale agreement, and really lay it out and spell it out that these have to be in there. But they end up having the same result, because they have the result that we're saying what's the flood zone, which is what you were concerned about. What is the flood zone, and 2 is whether that person had insurance or not, had flood insurance. So it seems like they both do the same thing. It's just that A is where B where they're in, and B is all I see in here is the stuff you're saying they need to do, but it doesn't actually have that what we have in this amendment specifically saying this needs to be in that purchase sale agreement.
I'll defer to your understanding of the RSA's, over mine any day. But I'm looking at the purchase and sale agreement right now,
Right.
and it says, in compliance with the requirements of RSA 477-4-A, the following information is provided to buyer, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I started with. I was trying to use an existing document.
Correct.
And I figured if I amended 477-4A, that would then require flood disclosure to be included on here.
Right. Well, because the problem was when it comes to arsenic and the lead or radon, I know of radon in particular to say, is that in terms of testing, but testing was never required or never done. It was really to inform people that they should have it tested. But in terms of so that statute might talk to said if it's been tested, but it never required to be tested. And so the idea is that you want whatever we're requiring is we're asking things that had to have a positive answer. You have to tell them, relative to the location, whether it's on a flood map or not. That's a requirement. That is a positive. You have to do that. And then whether the seller has flood insurance, they have to say yes or no. And that's what I thought you were trying to get at. You wanted to get away from I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're trying to include specific questions that have to be answered yes or no.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, members of the committee. It's been my thrill to be with you these past 3 times. So hopefully we'll get to do it again sometime.
Okay. Mr. Quinn, you're up.
Hello, my name is Bob Quinn. I am the CEO of the New Hampshire Association of Realtors.
I'm Joni McIntyre. I'm the president of the Realtors Association.
So I think if we understand the intent behind the amended version of the bill, as Representative Munz indicated, it appears that what he wants to try and do is require a seller to indicate whether or not the property is in a flood map area. So it would be the only requirement in statute or any place where a seller would be mandated to have to answer yes or no to a question. We do have concerns about that, in that what it's sort of saying to a buyer is, hey, don't worry about doing your own due diligence. Trust what the seller is telling you. We don't think that's a good idea. It doesn't exist anyplace else on our purchase and sale. It doesn't exist anyplace else in statute. In addition, when you require that, this bill on page 3 under 540D1 is setting up a unique civil remedy for flood insurance that would only apply to issues regarding flood insurance. So how does that impact failure to properly disclose on other issues, such as septic, private drinking water, insulation, etc.? You're setting up a unique process just for flood insurance. In talking to our attorney, he wasn't sure why, and he wasn't sure the implications that that would have with other disclosures. So that's a real concern for us. And then in the final section on page 3, section 5, it says sort of, okay, seller, you have to answer yes or no, but if you hire a certified professional engineer or a land surveyor, then it's basically your liability is going to be removed. So even if a seller were to live on the side of a hill and they go to their attorney and they look at the purchase and sale agreement, the attorney's probably going to say, look, if you don't want any liability, you're going to want to hire a land surveyor or professional engineer in order to zero out that liability. We don't think that's necessary. And we also think that what is the proper thing to do is to encourage buyers always to do their own due diligence. No matter, I think Representative McAleer will tell you this, President McIntyre will tell you this, we would always recommend, even if the seller brings information, even if it brings a test for water quality in a private well, buyers should always do their own due diligence and doing their own water test to guarantee that is correct. This legislation is pushing it in the other direction, and it's saying, no, trust the seller. The seller is going to give you proper information. And I don't think that's the right direction.
I would agree on that, and I would say, just as a matter of information for you, we do not fill out those disclosures in any way. The seller fills out the disclosure, and we are not responsible for digging in and trying to find out more information. And if we have knowledge of something that we know is a material defect, we need to encourage the seller to disclose that, or we back out of the sale. I don't want to be in party to something where a basement floods and they say, no, don't tell anyone. That's not a property that I want to be involved in. If a seller brings a water test from a year ago and offers that to the buyer, I would still, as a buyer representative, ask the buyer to do their own water test. Things change. They would want the most up-to-date information. And I would say the same would be true about a flood situation. They should call their insurance agent, make sure that it's not in a flood zone. I would not recommend that my buyers rely on information given to them by the sellers beyond. They really should look into it on their own just to certify that it's true.
And just to reiterate what the chairman had mentioned earlier regarding 477-4A, so those are the notifications on radon, arsenic, and lead. And by the way, the House of Representatives recently passed a new notification requirement on PFAS, which we do support and is on the Senate side, and I would expect that to pass as well. So that would be the fourth. All of those have to do with contaminants, radon, arsenic, lead. So things like water supply and other things which are mandated by the legislature are in fact not in 477-4A, but are in 477-4D. So for consistency, we would encourage that the change be made in 477 4D. In the amendment, I think there is, I think that the total lines that would be added to our purchase and sale for flood would be 36 lines. Radon is about 5 right now. Arsenic is 7. So it is not, I don't think, proportional in terms of notification. I think it would be sending a message to buyers that the most important thing they need to review in purchasing a home is flood insurance. And I think that's probably not a message that we particularly should be sending to buyers. I think all of these things are very important and need to be treated equally.
Yes.
Thank you for taking my question. I think a buyer should really know about flood. If the flooding, if the property is in a flood zone, I think it should be revealed that it is in a flood zone, because this is 2024. I have photographs from all throughout the state regarding flooding that is occurring almost every time it rains now. So I think it's very important for a buyer to know if it is in a flood zone, and whether it's I think the realtor should be responsible for that. That's what I think.
So I can tell you a personal situation. I bought a condominium 16 years ago in South Carolina, and it was not in a flood zone and has not been in a flood zone for 15 years. And I think it may have been put in a flood zone in the last year because of a special assessment I received. But I don't have flood insurance, and I can't say for sure if it is in a flood zone. So, and actually, that property is for sale right now. On my disclosure, I checked unknown. I honestly don't know for sure. And I looked it up this morning on the flood map, and I still can't tell. So I think unknown is an answer that people might put there.
Okay. Representative Mackler?
Thank you. It seems to me that in looking at disclosures, the default message is unknown. So people haven't bothered to look into this, and they just check unknown. But you said you looked at the flood map. Did you look at the flood map?
I did this morning.
Yeah, and it didn't say it was in a flood zone.
I can't really tell from the flood map. It's very hard to interpret. I would, and I don't have, in this case, I don't have a mortgage on that piece of property. My insurance company hasn't said to me, "You're now in a flood zone." If I were representing someone who were going to buy that property, it's not mine, somebody else's, and I'm representing a buyer, I would check on the purchase and sale. That's one of their due diligence, to check flood insurance, and they would call their insurance company for one, and the insurance company can interpret them pretty well. And you know, that I would encourage them to do that due diligence. I wouldn't go by yes or no or unknown, because if they say no and their insurance company says yes, it's in a flood zone, should they not buy flood insurance?
Representative Burrows.
So I guess thanks for taking my question. The thing I'm struggling with, like in that scenario, and you said you didn't know, obviously that was true. Did you have a responsibility to ask professional, call whoever, FEMA, to find out what the story was? Because, I mean, everybody could check, I don't know.
Right.
With doing nothing.
Right.
So just to reiterate, on the property disclosure form right now, I just want to read it. It says, is this property located in a federally designated flood hazard zone? Yes, no, or unknown. Now, the property disclosure, as Representative McAleer pointed out, that is filled out by the seller, right? So whether or not they know or don't know. And if they have a realtor, the realtor is representing, in that case, the seller. If the buyer has their own agent, all right, and the agent comes across that and it says unknown, then that buyer agent would have some responsibility to work with that client to identify whether or not. So if you're in, I think the example came up in Hampton, you know. So if you're representing a buyer in Hampton, you're an agent, and you never bring up the fact, if you're the agent, that, hey, maybe we should go check the flood zone. Look, he said it's unknown. You are liable, all right? I mean, if something went wrong, if that was inaccurate information that was, or it wasn't even brought up, then that agent is at great legal risk in any lawsuit. So I think it is important to keep in mind who fills out the property disclosure form, who fills out and signs the purchase and sale. And I will point out that in the amendment on 477D, if you read the entire statute, it does require on all of these that it is written and that the buyer has to accept it and acknowledge by signing it. And that's what happens on our form currently. So they would have to acknowledge that they've received this.
Representative Gibbs.
Thank you. This is a question regarding the example that was given about the South Carolina property where you couldn't tell on the flood zone map whether the property was in the flood zone or not. But isn't there someone that you could call who could interpret that flood zone map for you, and so that you could actually find out whether the property is in a flood zone or not? Because a lot of this came up because we heard a fair amount of testimony about people who thought their property wasn't in a flood zone. And I guess when they bought it, unknown had been checked, and they thought there was no information. But then if they tried to get a mortgage, the bank told them it was in a flood zone, or if they tried to sell it, it was in a flood zone, and this created problems for them. So is there some way that you could check?
Well, yeah, there is, but important to point out that in 2021 in New Hampshire specifically, there was a great deal of change in the flood maps. Flood maps change frequently. And in 2021, on the Seacoast, there was a major revision that was done. So someone could very well have purchased a home in 2018 that was not in a flood zone. When they go to refinance in 2023, it is in a flood zone. Everyone during that initial purchase and sale did everything properly. They did their due diligence, realized it wasn't. But now all of a sudden they go to refinance and it is, and that happens relatively frequently.
Follow-up question?
Well, actually, I have another idea on how to solve this problem. So if after my question, if it doesn't feel like it solves it for you, then you can ask your other question. Okay, so given that under D, it actually asks the question, the D one asks questions about these other products, radon, arsenic, and lead or whatever. How about working from this amendment that you and I agreed on, we add a paragraph, Roman numeral 5, and we don't get into the yes/no parts. We just get into the part about, and I was looking at actually 6, which is what is a flood zone, and what is insurance, and that, you know, some of that. Can we just take some of that language and narrow it down, put it, you know, short and sweet, like we have with radon and arsenic and lead, to get to the point that this is something that you should be aware of, and that there are flood maps that are available to you.
So you're talking about putting it into 477 4A?
Just a one paragraph, just like these paragraphs are written. That are, because if I remember, and I am getting older, but because I feel like I was in the room for all 3 of these. I think all 3 of these came to Commerce. And my memory was that we just had this one, we had this Roman numeral, which helps describe the problem to people who were being educational. And then
we had this D Roman numerals, which had those letters, which actually was those specific questions. I know you probably are going to jump in joy with this, but because we need this paragraph done by tomorrow morning, or actually today, so I can have the amendment drawn up for tomorrow morning,
Just adding this.
and just taking.
So
I'm
we
sure Representative Munns worked very hard on all this language. So taking this language and editing it to a short and sweet paragraph which educates people how important flooding is an issue, and that's why we're going to ask this. Okay, so that's an idea. So we're going to go around the room, and Representative Gibbs has her hands up first, so go ahead, Representative Gibbs.
Thank you. Okay, back to, I actually now have two questions. But back to my follow-up question earlier, okay? You were talking about what might have happened in 2018 and so forth, but today, if you're selling a property and you can't interpret the flood map, is there somebody that you could call and find out and get that flood map interpreted? And if there is, shouldn't you do that? That's question number one.
Possibly you should, but I do think
You have
the
to put the
buyer
mic.
has
You have to have the mic. Sorry.
I do. I believe that it's important that the buyer determines that information. They are the one buying the property, and they need to call and find out if it's in a flood zone, so they have it from the horse's mouth.
And then my second question, I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman, is for you, and that is, as I said earlier, it seemed like and generally I'm not in favor of longer language, but it seemed that the longer language in 1208 did provide some additional clarity and specificity in terms of definitions and so forth. So I guess my question is, why would we want to eliminate that specificity?
Because they have this yes and no section. So I'm not eliminating it. I'm just trying to get this, I'm trying to mirror what we've already have in the statute. And in the statute, we have, I wouldn't call them, short paragraphs because they have multiple sentences in them, but that in those, they talked about radon, arsenic, and lead. And so now we want to add flooding, and we want a paragraph with enough sentences that let people understand how important this is, that they need to be, to know if they're in a flood zone, and B, where they can get the information to solve it. And that is, we're talking about these flood maps. Now, we all can go on and on and on about how flood maps are faulty, but I'm sure you could say the same thing about radon tests and arsenic tests, and let alone lead. Whether you don't know how long the house really, when was the last time it was painted. So at the end of the day, all I was trying to do is mirror what we did with those three. Have a little paragraph in there talking about how important it is, but that the meat of the bill, in the same thing for radon, arsenic, and lead, the meat of the bill was actually in 4-D, which had those specific positive actions that the seller must take to help but at the end of the day, and we all know what's happened this last year, everybody was buying the houses with cash. They weren't even doing due diligence. They were so worried about trying to make the sale, okay? And that is a problem, and we legislature can never fix that problem. But we all know, at the end of the day, the reason why a purchase sale agreement doesn't close the next day is because there is due diligence requirements. And I'll have to say, I remember this question way back when it came with the radon and arsenic, that at the end of the day, it is the buyer's responsibility to write in the purchase sale agreement that before the closing can occur, X, Y, Z needs to occur. X, you need to fix that leaky porch. B is you need to do a radon test. Okay, all those things are normally written into it. So what we're doing here is we're discussing things that buyers should be doing, but we all know that sometimes buyers who come from out of state are unaware of radon or unaware of lead on paint or something. But now we're adding another category and saying is, A, we want to educate them, tell them where they can get it answered, have a place where they really have to respond, where this is a checkpoint where the brokers have to say, did the seller answer those two questions directly? Representative Munns, you have a comment? Just take that mic right there. That'd be great. How do you feel about my compromise?
As usual, I think it's a very elegant compromise. I think I could live with that. The suggestion I would make in terms of the language that you're looking for is if you look at the amendment that I submitted, 1208H, starting at 27, line 27.
Yep, flooding.
I would include that, and at the end of line 29, what I would then add is I would reword line 29 to say, you are encouraged to examine your policy to determine whether you are covered and the official flood insurance map provided by FEMA for your community. And then end it there. I think that's what you're, and then we
Well,
take,
that was the seller or the buyer?
this is a message to the.
Because we're trying to educate the buyer. So
Okay,
so
well,
you
you
have
may-
to
yeah,
say
you may
is
have
the
to change
buyer. You can. I guess you can ask the seller for a copy of their insurance. Is that appropriate? You can't really ask them for that, but we are asking them that they identify whether they have flood insurance.
Well, what the point that we're trying to make here is that in terms of education is that for a buyer, a standard homeowner's insurance isn't going to cover you against floods. You're going to have to get
We're
more.
educating them about flood
So that's
insurance.
what that's trying to get at. I
And
think.
where you can get the flood insurance, or you should get it if, and then put in there that to get this national flood insurance maps.
Yeah, and I think
Just
the other
like-
the
just
other
like
thing
we
is
have-
to encourage. And I think we're probably focusing on the buyer here. Now that I think about it,
That's
that
what
to
we want. Now you
encourage
get
the
warmer.
buyer to go look at the maps to see for themselves whether
Bingo.
there's a problem.
That's what we want.
So I think if you added that would be okay. You could then take out everything starting on line 2 on page 2 through line 10, and then it sounds like you're agreeable to leaving section 6, which is kind of the explaining what the hell we're talking about. What a flood zone is, etc. Leave that in, so through line 33, and then everything else comes out.
I just don't want to be too long about this. Okay.
I think if you put A and B in, it would be
Just kinda-
sufficient.
Can I
could
make a
live with that.
suggestion?
Okay, because B has does have the map, about the map, right, so A and B.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
Because we did something like this with the Department of Environmental Services and some of these
Okay.
other issues where same issue, it was
Okay.
going to be very lengthy. We put in the website.
we put
So
what?
if you look at arsenic, there's
Okay.
a link to a website.
Yeah.
That tells the buyer as well as the agent where they can go. If we did those first 2 lines and then put for additional information, go to FEMA.gov, that's going to tell that buyer and that agent where to go to get additional information. Succinctly,
Okay,
one thing that we do
so
caution-
we started with the arsenic, right? You said you're going arsenic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Arsenic is a common groundwater contaminant in New Hampshire that occurs at unhealthy levels in well water in many areas of the state. Okay, so we want to describe flooding in one sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? And then tests are available, and so we want to say yes. You can find out whether you're in a flood zone, and be aware that flood insurance is not. I think it's important to let people know that flood insurance is separate from your homeowners.
Sure.
I think that sentence to me is probably helpful.
Purchase and sale does say that within the due diligence, you can check for insurance, regular insurance, and availability and cost of flood insurance.
Please talk into the microphone.
Sorry. Our purchase and sale does say that, has 2 separate lines, one for just regular property insurance,
Right.
and a second line for checking on the availability and the cost of flood insurance.
Okay, so but that's something you guys have in your document, but it's not statutorily required like we do now. So it's okay, but I guess there are purchase sale agreements out there that might not actually be, through the realtors. So we want to use whatever you did there, that concept. In other words, we're not forcing you to do something you're not already doing, but we want it to have it written in the statute. Does that feel comfortable with that? Representative McLeod.
A quick question. Shouldn't this language also be in the disclosure form as well as the purchase and sale?
We don't care. At this point, whatever they put in the disclosure form, because that's what got us in the problem in the first place, because it had, I don't know.
Right.
Okay, so we're not muddling around in that disclosure form. That disclosure form is theirs, and we're not, all our statute is 477, and what we want needs to be in 477, and 477 affects purchase and sale. So that's not,
I can live
that's
with
not
that.
complicated any more than we need to. Okay, so where we are at is they're gonna quickly, knowing what we have just asked for, get this done in a couple of hours, and then we can get it out to everybody, and then we'll keep processing it. So what I will be doing is I will be scheduling a subcommittee tomorrow morning at 9:30, so that we will have. What's that? So right now, what we're talking about is
your amendment
working
going
from this amendment, right? Because I assume nobody has problems with this being in the statute, okay? But we're adding another paragraph to this amendment. We're adding another paragraph to this amendment that's going to say, it's going to be Roman numeral 5, and it's going to be short and sweet about everything you ever want to know about flooding and flood insurance.
Yeah.
With a reference so they,
Right.
correct. Okay, does everybody feel comfortable with that?
And that goes in section 12
Yes, section 12, correct.
of the purchase and sale.
Yep.
Could we just hear Representative Munns on that again?
He already said that was a wonderful idea. Excuse me, his word was elegant.
I'm fine with providing some language that educates people about the need for flood insurance and the need to consult and I think it really is important to say the official maps for the community as a way to start educating people.
Okay,
And then we can go from there next year.
Excuse me,
and I'll be here.
who is going to be responsible for getting this amendment drawn up?
I will.
Okay.
So I need 24 hours. Okay, we could. Okay, so. Okay, we'll say the subcommittee will be at 11:30. And what we could do, yeah, get it in 11:30, and then I assume the exec session might be done. If not, we just and then you'll need to say you will need another exec session at no, it can't be. The second exec session on this bill would be at 11:45. Yeah, let's do that. No, thank you for catching me on that one. We might have more, that's true.
So we would start at 10 tomorrow?
We'll still start at 10 tomorrow,
Thank you.
because I'm too late to do anything. Okay, we'll move on from that one. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I'll be anxiously waiting to hear from you. But thank you. Okay. All right. Next up is 1358. I just sent her away.
Tomorrow. $16.94. Okay, I was one number off.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. My name is Lieutenant Matthew Culver. I'm a lieutenant with the New Hampshire Liquor Commission, Division of Enforcement and Licensing. The amendment and bill really before you deals directly with contract brewing and our contract manufacturing and tenant manufacturing. Contract manufacturing specifically is that you have a recipe to make a product and you give it to another manufacturer. That other manufacturer makes that product for you, very simply put. Under tenant manufacturing is that you have a recipe, you go into somebody else's facility and make your product using their equipment. So this bill expands what historically was for the brewers to make beverages and beer, is expanding it out to wine and liquor, wine manufacturers and liquor manufacturers as well. We worked very diligently with the New Hampshire Brewers Association and many leading industry members to come up with the extensive language that you see before you, but we wanted to make sure that the language was right and that it was very clear and made sense for the different manufacturing license types.
Great. Any questions from committee members? All right. Ready for a motion? Representative Patusek, second by Representative, who else is on this committee? Bullion. Moves ought to pass on amendment number 1072. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, let's make sure we have. So who's on this committee now? This is just the liquor. Yeah, but why are all these names here?
Because she never knows who's on first and who's on second. Because it changes.
Okay.
Because it changes.
Okay, right. So Patusek is on here. Who else is on the liquor one? Right, I thought so. And how many you get? How many you got there?
Sullivan is on.
But he's not here. Not
Right.
here. Okay, so
So
but these
Spear?
four are here, and we have symmetry. So
4-0.
it's 4-0. Okay. Representative Patusek, seconded by Representative Bullion, moves to pass as amended. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So moved unanimously. Okay. All right, next. You back yet?
She did that this morning, confirmed that the bank bill was like 6-0. So, yeah.
Or 17 to 1, sorry.
So he's not gonna do one. But he's gonna do one. Chris.
Oh, no, it was on, no, it was on, whoops, it was on,
Okay, you're not doing a minority report on the New Hampshire banking thing, are you? Which one? To create a New Hampshire bank.
No, he's doing the dispensing machines and credit card.
Who voted against it, Keith? Yeah,
Ammon.
He was the only one voted for.
Oh, so you were the one, okay. No, I meant the one vote, I didn't mean you.
You are the one.
You were the one. It's a crypto bill, you wanna talk? Oh, come on.
Yeah, we're being steamrolled.
Yeah.
Everybody should register as a lobbyist.
Okay, so as we had in the last meeting, we decided that we thought it was important that the position. I'm so loud, the mic, your mic. So, you know, when I'm in the old committee room, I just feel like, you know, go back to the way I used to do it. Okay, as we had discussed in the previous subcommittee, we had decided that we thought it was important that the prescriber be notified if this exchange was made. So, Representative McAleer.
Thank you. My question is this, I was basically not enthusiastic about this bill until I read that an amendment, I think, or part of it, that said that the patient could refuse it. Does this not?
That's in the current bill, correct?
Okay, that's one, right. Okay, then fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we're on the record as a subcommittee 5-0 interim study, so what do we do about that? With that?
That's true. The original committee had voted for interim study. So what we're gonna now do is take up the question to withdraw that motion
So to
and
reconsider.
reconsider.
And who are the
Okay,
voting
so
members?
I'll make the motion to reconsider. And seconded by Representative Burrows. This is the Health Committee.
Yeah, you said that's this one.
Okay, so the Health Subcommittee is Representative Gibbs, you're on the Health Subcommittee. Well, we'll see. We'll see about that in a moment. Okay, who else is on the Health Subcommittee? And
Insurance, is that?
insurance, yes, yes. Okay,
Vitale?
Vitale, you, okay. There we go. Insurance, McHugh, Purcelli, Hunt, Calabro, Gibbs, and Burrows. So you can replace Gibbs. Oh, excuse me, not Gibbs, but Calabro. I'm sorry, Calabro.
So it's Hunt, McHugh, Bocelli, Burrows, Gibbs, and Spear.
Okay. All right. So the motion has been made and second. All those in favor
May I speak to that motion?
to reconsider?
Might as well, because the vote was interim study,
Okay.
which is what I prefer. So
All right.
You wanna
So
just discuss
yes,
it
you
now?
can speak to the motion of
Yeah.
reconsider.
save me speaking to some other time. Thanks.
If I believed that, then I would have absolutely thought that was a good idea.
So I do think interim study was the right decision previously. This is one of the most complex bills that we've dealt with. I think I need a biosimilar of some sort myself right now to correct this sickness. But given the complexity of this issue, and given that the sponsor himself sent out a nice FDA guidance, a subset of the FDA guidance just yesterday. The FDA specifically says that it supports legislation that will classify biosimilars as substitutable with the reference biologic, but not with other biosimilars, which is what this bill aims to do, right? This bill specifically, and I'll just quote the guidance for you. The guidance says, quote, FDA is seeking to amend Section 351 of the Public Health Service Act, that's the thing that licenses biosimilars, to no longer include a separate statutory standard for determination of interchangeability and to deem all approved biosimilars to be interchangeable with their respective reference products. And that's the key part of this. And that's where our law differs. And it is an absolute difference. It's not a distinction. It is a difference. So our law on the top of page 2 says, regardless of the other issues with this, which are also complex, our law says that we want to allow something that the FDA just cleared up doesn't happen either here, in any state, or even in Europe. And they mention Europe specifically in that guidance, on the second page of that guidance, right below what I just read you. So I guess the question before the committee is, do we want to do something that even the FDA isn't suggesting, that no other country, no other state suggests, and then separately the whole host of other issues that we haven't studied, which is maybe it will reduce cost, which would be a great thing, and I'm all for it. I'm for studying and finding a way to do that. But there is also a real possibility that you'll be switched by your pharmacist to an off-formulary medication that is a higher cost. It's just that simple. We're giving the pharmacist the power to do something they don't currently have. Right now, pharmacists can be prescribers if, and only if, they have a collaborative practice agreement, just like a PA functions under a doctor. It's the same thing. And I didn't make that up. We got it straight from the professor of pharmacy practice at Mass College of Pharmacy. That's our law. So if we want to put in statute a variation on the way pharmacists currently practice, essentially expanding their practice, and actually giving them legal protection for something that could go wrong without studying it, that's what we would be doing. And I think there's enough issues, cost, safety. It's great that we have an amendment that says the patient can refuse any drug, any prescription now. They can already do that. And I think a lot of patients who are in extremis and dealing with cancer and dealing with tough things, I hope that all of us would call our doctors, but I'm not so sure that every person dealing with cancer, or if the patient would even be there at the time of dispensing. That's the other issue. So there's just a lot of issues with this. We made the correct motion before.
Let's stay focused on.
We made the correct motion before. It was unanimous 5-0 interim study. We've had lots of information come before then, and some of it made it imminently clear that even the FDA doesn't recommend what this bill does. So I'd ask
Okay.
you just to vote down reconsideration.
Representative Spear. No, we're talking
We're
about
talking
whether
about the
we
very,
should
very
reconsider.
specific. We're talking about a very, very small subset of biosimilar drugs that have gone through further testing with switching studies. The switching studies are extensive, and druggists are allowed to switch those with the formulary right now because they've been designated as interchangeable biosimilars, and that's a small handful of drugs. We received a number of studies when we were in this committee last time showing how these were very safe. We received those studies from Europe, and we received studies from some other committee members that came in from other, like Representative Leon and her husband, Dr. Leon. And I went through those, and I'm sure everybody else had the opportunity to go through those as well. And as a result of that, it became very clear that there are alternatives to the rising drug prices that we face, and that this bill gives us an opportunity to take advantage of that for the very small subset of drugs that have been gone through switching studies. They don't have that designation. Switching studies is not a designation they have in Europe, so they don't use it. We received some comments against this, they were conjecture, they were opinion. They did not have the proof that we had that was supporting this bill. The other thing is we received support from the New Hampshire Medical Society, AARP, NSCL, the U.S. Congress, I have found, support this kind of an idea and are thinking about writing a bill for it. Medicare, PBMs, and the pharmacy associations of the national and state level. We've been strangled over the years by what we've been told drug companies can do, what we've been told what pharmacy can do. New Hampshire has in the past done some innovative things with drug laws and with insurance requirements. This is a way that we can give them a little tool. It's a small tool that they can use to start to begin to bring down drug prices. And I think it's very important that we take advantage of this tiny little step and go with it. The idea that we need to study it some more, there isn't anything left to study. We've seen 15 years of studies coming out of Europe where they're into changing drugs all over the place. We've seen 15 years of Japan changing drugs. It's time for us to take that little step, and I believe that we have to do this.
Spear for governor.
Gibbs.
Thank you. I guess I have 2 points which are, I think, fairly perhaps simplistic in reference to the FDA guidance. My understanding is that things that are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. That is, that if drug A is a biosimilar to drug B and drug C is a biosimilar to drug B, if drug B is biosimilar to drug A,
We get it.
and
We
drug
got
C is a biosimilar to drug A, then drug B would be a biosimilar to drug C, and therefore they should all be interchangeable. That was how I understood it. The second thing is in reference to the pharmacy possibly switching a lower cost to a higher cost biosimilar. It is always possible to ask the pharmacist at the time of dispensing what would be the cost of an alternative formulation. And I know this is possible, and I know that they answer honestly because I have done this. And found, for instance, that there was a difference between something that would cost $300 a month and something that would cost $1,100 a month, which obviously was a huge difference. So I think those problems can be dealt with.
Yes.
If I recall correctly, would New Hampshire be the first state to enact this type of legislation?
Evidently, to Representative McGue says yes, we would be the first state to do
Is there a
that.
way that we could require some type of an evaluation after, say, a 1 or a 2 year period to determine, what is the cost savings, if there were any issues? Because if this is model legislation for other states, I'm sure they would want to understand what our lived experience would be.
So we could add a sunset to the statute, and which would cause it to.
Well, I don't
then
know if
have
it's a sunset, it's just some type of a
Well, sunset does
evaluation.
what it has the effect of is having then a public hearing process, and then decided that whether this is appropriate, and that's really what remember the pandas that's really pandas was sunset. That was a 5-year sunset. So that after a period of time, then you can pause and in the public hearing, then people would have to bring in and show that there was, what the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess. So that is a
Because-
possibility. We
just
could
because
add a
this is
sunset.
fairly cutting edge for a state to do it. It is something different where, the objective is to help patients and reduce costs. I would definitely like to see if we're meeting those objectives.
Okay.
So somehow,
Again,
I'm
we're
not
right
sure
now
every-
we're the okay. We're still on the reconsideration motion, aren't we? Okay, so that right now we're trying to decide whether to reconsider, but that isn't another option. Yes, Representative.
A couple of comments were made about it could cause an increase in drugs. We have a thing in here that says specifically that they can only be offered if it reduces the
They
price.
had to be a reduced price, correct?
So at least that part of it
That's
we
already
took care of.
the cost issue is already addressed in it. So, okay. So the motion is to reconsider And so we have Hunt, McGee, Verselli, Burrows, Gibbs, and Spear. All those in favor of reconsidering, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? So it's 5-1. Okay. So, obviously, this bill has to go on to the Senate. And, and if Representative McGee is convinced of of the logic of his argument, then I think he could certainly present it to the Senate.
Yeah.
In terms of adding a sunset to it, I don't know. I don't know. I would assume that if the FDA, if knowing that we pass it, let's say we do pass it, and I assume the FDA will become aware that we passed it, that if they think there was a problem, then they have abilities to take quick action and basically shut us down if they thought it was a
report, to say, oh, this is, wildly successful or beyond our expectations,
Yeah.
or these are the
But I don't
issues.
know who would do that. That's the problem. Who would?
I don't,
who-
like the insurance company, the
See, that's the same.
Department of Insurance? I don't know.
I've always treated this bill as an insurance bill.
Mhm.
Okay, why did it come to us? It is true that Representative Merchant, the sponsor, is from the Health and Human Services Committee, and he assured me that all his committee members are okay with this bill. Okay, so I take that for what it's worth. So at this point, I have not had any in-state, anybody in the health system say that there's a problem with this bill. And yes, all the insurance companies think that if it's going to lower costs to the consumer, then that's a good idea. So that's that point where I was originally willing to interim study it because of the nature of being so unknown and the presentation we had at the time. The movement of the committee was to interim study it. Obviously, in hindsight, and so maybe we were a little rushed to judgment on that interim study, and I'm comfortable with going ahead and passing this bill.
Okay, all right, so there's no way to issue a report, it's the sunset.
Well,
So the best way to have that will happen is Representative McGee will do his research and he'll come in and bring in a repeal bill.
and I think probably next year you can introduce a bill in regards to what you want to see
Or what kind of a
resulting
study
from
you would
this.
see. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I could certainly bring in another.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now you get the problems of okay. All right. So we have a motion. Representative, who would like to Representative Spear, seconded by Representative Hunt, moves to pass on the amendment. Amendment number 1028. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? Well, that's unfortunate. That means you don't care about the physician being notified? Okay.
Just for the record, I'd like them to be notified in advance, and
Okay.
I talked to you about that, and
Right.
the amendment
All right.
doesn't do that.
Representative Spears, second by Representative Hunt, moves ought to pass as amended.
Oh, wait a minute. There's another line. I have to do another one.
Oh, I
there. I'll
see.
do it. It's okay. I'll get it.
You just
I'll write
say,
it
just
down here.
do a little circle, little arrows, and say this is
I'll do that after.
okay.
Okay.
It's-
So Spear,
Oh, I see.
Hunt.
Because you see, right? Because we
Yeah.
did the reconsider motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
and
do it
it's
that
fine.
way.
And then I'll
Okay. Okay.
amendment adopted.
All right. Any discussion on the motion about to pass as amended?
Was it an amendment that said at no additional cost, or was that in the original
That
bill?
was in the original bill.
I thought that was an amendment. For
That
some
was in
reason.
the original. I was thinking you need an amendment, then I realized reading the bill it was already there.
Where is it?
Uh,
I'm looking at it now.
okay. Oh, it's there.
I saw a red line amendment.
That I
That
had
had
an
that-
amendment, but it turns out that was unnecessary. It was already in the bill. So
It was in a section around it, I think.
yeah, I don't have the bill in front of me, but we really want to see it and know about it. Okay.
I don't
that's
think
fine.
I don't think it says it.
So who has? Can you
It was
pull up
a
the bill for me?
it was an interested party amendment that brought it in.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Hey, Keith.
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, hi.
You can have another amendment drawn up.
I have an email from Rep Merchant about.
We've had so many amendments, I can't tell anymore.
But I thought I read in the bill.
You did. There was a red line amendment that saw it.
I got that amendment. I thought when I read the bill that it said. Okay, I guess I don't see it now.
Even if it doesn't, as I said earlier, it's very easy for the customer to guard against that. As I said, I have done it myself.
And that was a concern that HHS committee members had, including Rep. Fault, in fact, and one former member of this committee.
All right, so we'll have to have another subcommittee on this with that. Yep. Guess we're gonna be here for tomorrow afternoon now.
Can you read this quickly from Merchant? So that's his expectation.
I have not seen the amendment, I believe it include language that the pharmacist had to inform us at the time. Yeah, I'm not sure which one of the.
Could I pull the rest of the committee real quick? Does anyone object since we're
Second, substitution performed by pharmacies versus the business entity. Thus the
Ignore that last part.
Oh,
just
okay.
the first one.
Dispense, I'm not sure which one he may use in the amendment, which would be earlier than the 3 days in the current law. So this is something new.
Well, that's what he was expecting, but I don't know, maybe.
That the pharmacist had to inform the prescriber at the time of dispensing. So was it, that's not in the bill?
Well, the amendment
Um,
language there.
So this is something else. When a pharmacist dispenser in, the pharmacist shall inform the patient
And the prescriber.
and the
I
prescriber.
found it
He
though.
has his 3 days thing.
I remember
Not
when we
sure.
found it.
Not sure which one he may use and be earlier than the 3 days in the current law. Okay, the current law, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so he's saying that, I need a copy of this bill. This is why I hate not having the file here in front of me. Nobody has the paper copy. I hate looking electronically. I'm sorry, I need, if I'm gonna make an amendment, I need a paper copy. You cannot write on a computer. I know you can on iPad, but that is not a place I wanna go.
I'm with you.
Okay.
The original bill says inform the patient on page 2. It's page 2, Roman numeral 4.
Right, that's what's in the current law.
That's
But then
current
up
bill.
here in Roman numeral 4, which is what we're amending, when a pharmacist dispenses an intermediate biological product for the prescriber the pharmacist or his or her designee shall inform the patient.
And then the amendment says, and the prescriber, but it doesn't give a time frame.
But the 3 days, to me, the 3 days was the filing, the electronic filing of the prescription. So to me, he's confusing the situation by saying that, okay, but we could add, so if we take out the amendment that we have in front of us, okay, we take out the amendment, the pharmacist, for the prescriber, the pharmacist and hinder shall inform at the time of the dispensing. When a pharmacist, at the time a pharmacist dispenses. I'm using that dead pen again. At the time.
Shouldn't we have them tell the doctor when they surgeons get sent over, they just send a note back?
No, because that's a whole process, a delay, and that means the patient won't get their medicine as quickly as they would like to.
Right.
So we are not going to worry about that, because the pharmacist, the pharmacist has an obligation to notify the prescriber, and if the prescriber says this is a bad idea, the prescriber can then take action to call. They can call the patient and say, don't take it.
What I'm thinking is there's time anyway. They send it electronically. They transmit it.
Okay, no, so here's the problem. The problem is you're opposed to this bill. So to say that you're trying to negotiate in good faith, you would have to convince me that you're negotiating it to make this a better bill so that you are ready to vote for it. But if you're never going to vote for it, I'm kind of tuning out what you're saying. I'm just telling you.
I'm just telling you
Okay.
what I think would make it a passable bill, and that would be to tell the doctor.
Please talk into the mic.
Oh, yes, so sorry. What I think would make it way more reasonable that I could even support is if we tell the prescriber in advance. And I think there's an opportunity in the typical work scenario. I get a prescription from my doctor. They transmit it electronically. I'm usually, not very often, not usually standing at the pharmacist ready to take it across the counter.
Okay.
These types of drugs, they usually have to order, these complicated ones.
Do you have the amendment that he had done ahead of time?
Probably.
It's probably in.
Yeah, it's in my email, sure.
I'm pretty much against doing that because for the reasons
No,
you said.
I'm against doing that too, because
Okay.
it's timing. It's a timing problem. So, but right now, what I want is just where we put it in that it was going to be for less money. No, it was in an amendment. There was actually several amendments. Okay. Okay. Go where. No, he sent it to me. So it's.
Oh, I found the amendment.
See if it's the same one.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the amendment is already drawn up, so we already remembered number, so we don't have to wait. We can have. It says, this is Roman numeral 8. If you're looking at the bill in front of you, a pharmacist shall not substitute an interchangeable biological product that results in an increased cost to the patient.
So that's another amendment?
So,
Thank you.
I'm not really worried about his amendment, that last comment about at the time, because it says, when a pharmacist dispenses an interchangeable biological product for the prescribed, the pharmacist shall inform the patient. So I think that's okay.
You don't want to,
I don't think we need to do it. Okay, so we have two amendments we're going to take up. Would people like to have a copy of the second amendment before they vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, I will have them. John, Chris? Okay. Okay. All right, so what we'll do is we'll just take up, we've already passed this.
Yep.
What did we pass now? Okay.
We've already
The
passed
amendment.
amendment
To pass that amendment.
1028.
And then we need another
Okay, we
amendment,
passed
and
that
then I'll put-
amendment. So what we're going to do is we're going to table this bill at this moment until we have copies made of the amendment.
All right.
And we'll move on to the next issue.
Okay.
Okay? All righty. Next one is 1018, relative to on-premise, off-premise liquor licenses. And of course, I sent her out of the room again.
Do you want the bill? Do you want the folder?
No, all the amendments are back here. Okay.
got a cold going on.
So I want everybody to know that other committees who don't do subcommittees would be dragging this one bill out, be doing this, but the fact that we have this done by subcommittee, that by the time we exec this tomorrow, we'll be in good shape. And it'll take all day doing it. Okay. You want to remind us what's all in here?
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. The amendment for.
Introduce yourself again for the.
I'm sorry. Lieutenant Matthew Culver, New Hampshire State Liquor Commission, Division of Enforcement. The amendment is a couple clerical issues. It's adding from the original bill a second license to distill, as you see on line 7. That was unintentionally omitted out of the original bill. The amendment then added, there was an amendment to add the hookah requirements to the cigar bar license pursuant to RSA 17820-A. And in that, there was a omission on page 2, line 8 of that amendment that changed the letter Z to level. So where it says on this bill that's before you, the amendment before you is on page 2, line 8, and that no
Level, right.
level of exposure to secondhand smoke is safe. That level was a Z. It was a clerical error.
It was a Greek reference.
Yes,
Level
correct.
means Z.
Those are the changes in this amendment.
There's a little too much AI involved. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, so this is the liquor committee. So who do we have on the liquor committee?
Hunt, Bollier, Patusik,
Right. Burrows.
and I know it's Sullivan, but he's not here.
Not
So
here. So we
Grassy?
because we were down to
I think
four. We were down to
Grassy,
four.
right.
There
you
she
wanna
is.
just do the four?
Okay, Nita's back
Okay.
in the room. Okay, so this
just
is
do the
there's just
four?
four of us.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Petusek and Burrows. Okay. So all those in favor of the in the amendment is 0998.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're second it.
Yep. 4-0.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, pass unanimously. Okay, Representative Petusek, second by Representative Bolio.
All right.
Ought to pass
Let's just hear, yeah, us passes.
as amended.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? Unanimous? Okay, we're done with that one. Alrighty.
In my efforts to save paper, I actually went.
And found it.
Yeah, I accidentally went from two to. I went from two-sided to one-sided instead of 1 to 2, and so now we have double paper. Sorry.
Now we double. Oh, I see what you're
I
saying.
apologize.
That's right. You know, I had that problem because computer sometimes they default, and they. Okay, we'll take House Bill 1365 off the table, and take up the Second Amendment. And yes, in case anybody ever know, yes, you can have multiple amendments on the same bill. Okay. So Representative Spears, second by Representative Hunt, moves ought to pass on the amendment number 0898.
Okay.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, well, this is the Health Subcommittee, so it's Hunt,
McHugh, Bocelli.
McHugh, Bocelli, Burrows, Gibbs, and Spear. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Representative Spear? I mean, Vice Gibbs, Gibbs?
Gibbs. Aye.
Okay, and those opposed? Representative McGill? And for the amendment? Okay, great. All right, so next, so it's a unanimous vote,
6-0.
6-0. Okay, so now we have Representative Spear, I don't know if you maybe did need to make another set sheet, huh? But we'll be fine. I would just flip it over to the backside of it.
Okay, I'll do that.
Representative Spears, seconded by Representative Hunt, moves ought to pass as amended.
Yep.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Yes, Representative Spear.
New Hampshire has always been supportive of new ways to reduce the cost of insurance coverage for the prescriber. And this is a really an excellent opportunity for us to finally make a dent with respect to the coverage for drugs. So as far as the insurance companies are concerned, this is a win. And as far as the prescribers that are concerned, this is a win. So I am very encouraged by the fact that we're going to take this first step and be very innovative in this area, as we have been in other areas of legislation that this committee has taken up. So I encourage everybody to vote OTP.
A. OTPA.
Isn't it OTP?
A.
AA.
Okay, the motion is ought to pass as amended and amended twice, just for clarification. All right, is the question clear? Representative you one more time.
Yeah, so I still think interim study is the best thing. I'm glad we passed the amendment to make it clear that it won't increase cost to the consumer. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as a study to sub one interchangeable for another. So that's a misnomer. I hope the blurb doesn't say that because that'd be misinformation. And the bill's really not about drug costs, right? There's a lot of ways to lower drug costs. Prescriber may win, pharmacist may win, patient loses. Supported interim study, that'll be the minority report, which you already have.
Okay. Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor of to pass as amended, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those opposed?
Got it.
Okay, 5-1.
Yep.
All right, moving on.
John, there was a request that we go through the whole, a member asked if we could finish them this morning, not take a lunch break.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, so this is by, so this was OTP/AA. And that was Spear. Okay. All right, and we just took care of 1018, right?
Yep.
Because we passed it, we passed the
Yep.
amendment and the bill,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and Petrusek, okay. Okay, next 1241, relative to regulation of money transmitters. Sure, we can do 1296. Anything to get you out of the room, no.
Wow. Getting a little bold there. Whoops.
What's that? It's a little stuffy in here, is that what you're saying? Okay, Representative McAleer, you want to open that window? Well, there's two, and the one I'm looking at doesn't look like it's open at all. Well, you see it's unlocked, but just shove it open, there you go. Right. But that was forwarded to everybody anyway, so. Yeah, so.
Oh, she went to.
Thanks.
Huh? Two, I'm giving you two each.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the amendment of House Bill 1296 that's in front of you is just pushing out the effective date to January 1st, which is traditional what we do with any health insurance mandate, is because that's when really begin the process of new contracts go out. So I would like to make a motion.
Happy to move out to pass.
I will make the motion.
Okay.
For the amendment.
Yeah, for the amendment. So the amendment number 1133. And seconded by Reverend Burrows. Okay, so motion is made and second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, this is the Health Committee. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'll make the motion about to pass as amended. Okay, and recognized to speak to my motion. So the reason why I'm making this motion is I'm going to make sure in the blurb, excuse me, I'm not supposed to say that, in the committee report, is to make clear that the committee intention with this bill is, in terms of passing it, is that this machine, this special machine, is being done because the mammography that we do mandate now is unclear, and that they need to have another exam, and that's why we're waiving the deductible and copays, because this is really a follow-up to that mammogram test. Okay, so the motion is ought to pass as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed, unanimous. And we're good to go. Okay, so I only have 2 left. 1241. Money transmitters.
Scared them away.
I guess I should have done that one first, huh? Oh, they had nothing better to do today, right? Yes, please.
Question here is this stored value. What does that mean?
Okay. All right, so we have a question right off. And the money transmission means any of the following. So what is stored value? That was the compromise, right, for the
It's line 10.
that was those guys, the payday company, the payroll companies that hold on to, was this the compromise?
I'm sorry, can you, which section are?
So I'm
are
on
we-
page 10, line 10, excuse me,
Of the bill or
Yeah.
of the amendment?
on the amendment.
I actually haven't seen the
Yeah.
official amendment.
Oh, you didn't get one? Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, first, just by introduction, I'm Bob Lamberti from the banking department. That section, Roman numeral 18, yes, that was amended in part as part of the changes made in conjunction with the payroll processing group. Stored value is defined elsewhere in the bill. In the definition section, it's Roman numeral 28.
That's going to be in the current bill.
That's in the bill.
original bill.
Yep.
So you're going to pull up the original bill. The internet's a little slow in this corner of the building. Well, that's it up there, isn't it?
Do we have a copy of the original bill?
You were given one months ago.
Yes. But I don't know where it is.
I pulled up the original bill if anybody wants.
I do,
Do
actually.
you want to go sit next to her? And
Not necessarily. I should have brought my computer because I got it in my
Should
computer.
we have original bill in there for him?
The original bill's 32 pages. Do you want to read it? I already read it yesterday, so.
All 32 pages.
Yes. Yeah, most of it's boilerplate, but
Yes.
I'm interested in the cryptocurrency business. Thanks.
Well, I'm glad you're interested in something.
Yeah, this has been a big deal for me.
Okay. So what does it say for store value? And if you had, now that you have the original, what page is that on?
In the original bill, it's on page 5, starting on line 9.
So I see, where am I at here?
Oh, you're up. Okay.
There's something called, so page 1, line 27, there's closed loop stored value. closed loop stored value is different than,
On page 1?
yeah, definitions.
Yeah. What is closed loop stored value?
And
What's
then
that
page
mean?
5 has stored value.
Right, so you have two. You have the closed
Yes.
loop and then separately
You got some splaining to do here.
stored value.
Explain the difference.
Well, admittedly, it's been a little while since I looked at,
No,
at these definitions.
We'll give you time to think about it.
Page 5 is where stored value is explained. Is it proper for me to ask why we have this legislation to begin with?
Okay, yes, I can answer that question. So we actually had heads up about this last year, that this legislation was coming down the pike, and that we had already taken care of getting rid of the licensing of ATM machines. I don't know if you remember that. Those are all. It's all of this. This is a recodification of the whole business of our. They call it money transmitters, but it's really our what would we call this department? This is the of the bank department. What division is this in?
This would be consumer credit division.
Consumer credit
Yep.
division. That's what I was looking for.
Yep.
Okay, there it goes, right there in the title. Okay. So the consumer credit division, because the banking department not only regulates banks, but then we can regulate consumer credit. So this can go all to consumer credit includes, small loans and payday loans even, all those different divisions. So then in that division, in that thing, we have been somewhat working around the issue of that was also in this division, was technically your crypto was actually had got dabbled in here because it was considered a commodity, but more importantly was money transmitters. What is the issue of I go to the old Western Union, but I flunked the Western Union test when I was trying to send money to my daughter, so I just went down to my local Walmart, and they tell you which Walmart do you want to send the money to, and instantly I'm sending money to my daughter who was in San Francisco. It was a marvel. But yes, those money transmitters are regulated
Okay,
under
but
this section.
are there different types of
So I wanted to pull the thing closer.
There are obviously a lot of different versions
look at
of,
him.
of money transmission, or the reasons for money transmission. And I noticed in the amendment to House Bill 1241, there is Section 4, for purposes of this section, a licensee that issues proprietary cryptocurrency, non-fungible tokens, or other digital assets shall not include the value of such assets when calculating tangible net worth.
And I explained that to you.
Well, I
Did
think
you like my explanation?
You made a stab at it.
You're calling me making a stab at it? No,
you
I
were-
was very
you was-
straightforward that
you-
the banking department, when you're being regulated by the banking department, we want your balance sheet.
Right,
And we are going to go over that balance sheet with a fine-tooth comb.
right.
And if you think that you can write in goodwill or some other intangible value, such as, oh, we issued these crypto coins and they're worth $100, and we issued 1,000 of them, so I'm going to put $1 million into my balance sheet, they're going to say we are going to disregard that.
There's a few more sentences that follow.
I'm just cutting it, making it short and
For
sweet.
purposes of calculating net worth under this section,
Yes.
cryptocurrency, non-fungible tokens, or other digital assets shall be considered, quote, proprietary, quote,
Right. If they're
when such
issued,
assets are developed or created by the licensed entity.
exactly.
So we're talking about the creation of a currency.
No, do not confuse this with digital mining.
No, I'm not confusing it with mining, digital mining or otherwise. Nothing in this paragraph shall prevent a licensed entity from including the reasonable value of cryptocurrency, non-fungible tokens, or other digital assets developed or created by other entities and held as assets when calculating tangible net worth. Has this particular section always been regulated by the banking department?
The short answer is no. And it's been added as part of the Model Act in response to specific instances that the department's seen on the national sphere with regard to crypto firms and inflated values of tokens insofar as they affect the balance sheet. And the reason that was added in this case is because the department's trying to provide some protection to consumers in instances where there are bad actors, like FTX. That's really the biggest one that we've seen. There are a couple others, I think, where similar issues have arisen, but that's what this particular paragraph is designed to protect against.
Does the bank have any estimation of how much cryptocurrency and also changing cryptocurrency for dollars, et cetera, has the banking department done any study that would indicate how much of this activity would be done in New Hampshire if this became law as written, as recommended here?
I guess are you asking how much money transmission is being done, or?
That's two different questions. You're asking, if you want to ask is, how much money transmitting that's going on between turning currency into Bitcoin.
Different currencies.
It has nothing to do with this section of the bill. This section of the bill is solely about the solvency of the financial institution that is being licensed. It has nothing to do with what they do for a business, okay? And that's what you're asking is a separate question. Your separate question is how much activity is going on between taking Bitcoin, or excuse me, that's a brand name, but taking, for instance, Bitcoin to fiduciary currency.
I have another question which follows on that. If you're going to regulate something, you become responsible for it. And you mentioned, as a matter of fact, protecting the under the consumer affairs routine. Do you have any idea, do you have the infrastructure to actually regulate what could be a multi-billion-dollar industry in New Hampshire?
Yes. And I say that because we currently do. The exemptions that exist for money transmission related to cryptocurrency, they're not changing. So the entities that we regulate and oversee, in theory, won't change at all with the passage of this bill. This is designed to make the regulatory scheme more efficient and easier for the department to coordinate with other states on a nationwide basis, that sort of thing. So,
all right, I'll go with that. My next question is, then why are we saying these things in writing? What is the current regulatory environment that you are working under?
Well, this section, as Representative Hunt said, relating to the balance sheet and how the assets and liabilities are calculated, we don't have standards for that part of it in the current money transmitter law. So the Model Act has what are called prudential standards for net worth, permissible investments, that sort of thing. And this is just one sort of subset of that. So that's a new addition, this section that you're referring there.
Could you define the word proprietary for me?
In this context, what it's designed to capture are cryptocurrencies, tokens, et cetera, electronic assets that are created or developed in-house. So if I'm a company and I develop a digital currency or token, I can't then essentially what we've seen, create a value for that and put it on my balance sheet as an asset. Because what happens is the company would then have an overinflated value. And so consumers and the public think it's worth a lot more than maybe it is. And so this is designed to kind of bring that trust in the balance sheet and the entity back.
It has to be publicly traded. It has to be that there's other third party people have actually done something with that product and said, yeah, you know, that the value you have on it is a free and open market. In other words, it needed to be on the New York Stock Exchange, so that is a publicly traded. But if you just go and, you know, print paper on your, you know, on your computer, you print paper and say all of a sudden this paper is stock and this stock is worth, you know, $100,000 per piece. No, if nobody is going to pay you $100,000 for it, then it's not legitimate. It's proprietary.
Well,
It's,
you
invented
can
it.
say when Bitcoin's value is, it's right on the ticker in the New York Stock Exchange.
That's correct.
So
Those are
no,
something
that's
different.
so the crypto has transactional value.
Correct.
The problem is if you're going to go and use it as collateral for a loan of some sort, then you have to do it in dollars, or I would think.
The end of the day is the value is only as good as the other person feels it has value.
Well, you're going to. I would reference what Bitcoin is going for, or Ethereum, or some whatever that is. These things are actually already costed out. So it's not a matter of.
Again, the costing out is because it's publicly traded, not because they just created it in-house and gave its own proprietary in-house value. That's the difference. You want to try?
Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
You wanna-
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, may I try to clarify this for my own understanding?
Is it along the same questioning that he is? Otherwise, you're saying you're-
It's clarifying,
Okay,
hopefully,
sure.
to be sure that I understand the same,
Okay.
the answer to the same issue.
Okay.
Okay. If I am a license, if I own a company that's a licensed entity, and we create some cryptocurrency and assign it a particular value and issue it, we can't count that as part of our tangible net worth. But if my company owns some assets, owns some cryptocurrency as assets, and that cryptocurrency has not been issued by my company, but rather by some other company, and has some market value, then we can count that as part of our tangible net worth. Have I
Correct.
understood that correctly?
That's
That
the
is
intent.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Keith.
So I like the language that you guys came up with for the proprietary aspect. So I have no issue with that. That makes perfect sense. You know, I could create a million tokens, sell it to one person for $1,000 for one token, and all of a sudden I have $1 billion market cap for my asset that no one else values, right? So
Right.
that would be a bad actor. We want to keep them out of our economy. I just want to go back to that stored value definition. I just want to make sure we're not inadvertently pulling in virtual currency into that stored value definition, because that would sort of defeat the whole purpose of exempting it, which we did originally back in 2017. So,
Yes, why don't you read us what the definition of stored
yeah,
value
well,
is?
so there's a couple pieces of it before you do. It says stored value means monetary value representing a claim against the issuer, evidenced by an electronic or digital record, and that is intended and accepted for use as a means of redemption for money or monetary value or payment for goods or services. So it says it's electronic, or it could be electronic. And then it says the term includes but is not limited to prepaid access, on and on. So
Right.
not limited to could pull in anything, right? So I just want to make sure it's not inadvertently. I know it isn't your intention, but
You know, it's the idea of a card that's been preloaded with value.
That's my understanding.
That was my so the issue is you don't actually say card or account, or you don't kind of limit in terms, because when you have that language is kind of open ended, it appears that it goes beyond from what we intended it to be, which was these stored value cards, because we're using that to take care of the mayor's problem.
So maybe add something like, this does not include virtual currency to virtual currency transactions, because that's really the exemption there.
I think that's certainly in line with my understanding of how this works. All said, I don't have an issue with adding it. I think if I'm looking at this, with my attorney hat on, I would go to the definition of money transmission and then the exemptions as a sort of starting point. And the exemption that has been there since 2017 is still there, and that exempts the solely in cryptocurrency that I think you're referencing there. But if it's a matter
so
of
you're
making
saying
it
that
clear,
paragraph's been there all along.
yeah,
So do you mind putting that as a bill in for next year?
Well,
Or we can amend a bill, we do it non-germane hearing and add it to another bill?
I just think if somebody from out of state is coming and reading this for the first time, they might get the false impression
right.
that it includes virtual currency. So maybe reference the exemption in the definition of stored value.
in paragraph 28 of the original bill,
Of the original bill, right? Maybe put an explicit reference to the exemption that you just mentioned in that definition. That way, if somebody's reading for the first time, they're not confused.
I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
It'd be pretty simple.
Okay.
I mean, that's what he's saying, right?
All right, so I need that amendment ASAP
Yesterday.
so that I can,
Yep.
yesterday.
Yep.
So if you can go home, have that drawn up and sent over to me, and then we'll get that to legislative services.
Yep, I can do that.
That makes sense.
I still have
We could do it as a
bunch of
format.
questions, by the way.
Well,
And
that's
stored
fine.
value is among them.
Okay, so
I mean, I have to, I'm an old school dollar guy.
okay,
So the thing is, stored value means monetary value representing a claim against the issuer. I don't know if you're issuing crypto, but against the issue evidenced by an electronic or digital record. So what am I looking at if I want to see what the real value is, and you give me a digital record or some electronic proprietary and digital thing, and
called a
you-
debit card. Do you have a debit card?
Yeah, sure. But
Okay,
I mean,
so that debit card has stored value, and the stored value is your bank,
yeah.
and that that all you have to do is go online with your bank.
Well, I
and
don't do any business in crypto.
No,
So
we're not talking about crypto.
what
We're
I'm
talking about
trying to
stored
get
value.
at is this crypto business, to me, is new.
Now we're specifically going to put in that stored value that it can't be crypto. It can't be that.
Well, I mean, the provenance is money laundering. So you can take crypto and do
The
dollars.
providence.
That would be regulated.
But there you are. I mean, if I have 1,000 crypto coins, and on the market, they each are worth $30,000, that's real collateral. I'm assuming it's going to be taken for real collateral.
If your financial institution is willing to use that as collateral, maybe Donald Trump should know about that because he's having trouble finding anybody.
Well, I'm sure
They'll give him
he's
a
probably
bond.
working on it.
You know,
but
maybe
the
if he has some crypto, maybe some people have
which
donated
is
some
why I
crypto.
asked, about the infrastructure at the bank. I don't
Okay.
think this is a
Okay.
minor matter.
What I know about this issue, okay, was that we have payroll companies that do not issue checks. They do direct deposit, and they give actually stored value cards. Am I going up the right
Stored value what?
It
cards?
says it's an electronic or digital record.
It's a digital record, stored value. And so what this was about, why we even, that it was always in there, but this was, ironically used as one of our exemptions to take, so that our small in-state payroll companies don't get swallowed up with this regulation, where the most famous one is the ADP, the payroll company, is going to be regulated because they actually issue stored value. I don't know if they issue a card, but they have the stored value.
Okay.
So that's
I'm
where I thought
thinking
this issue
stored
was.
value means dollars. Now, make a translation for me about all this cryptocurrency business.
Well,
So-
you're the one who's making that leap.
No,
Well,
it's right here. I didn't
no,
write this thing.
Keith is saying is he wants to make sure that with that term stored value,
Yeah.
that we are specifically making sure it's not crypto. So you should be ecstatic about his amendment, because he's clearing it up to make sure that no one ever thinks that crypto can be stored valued.
He's going to do dollars, just like everybody else,
That's what we want that paragraph to be.
which was at some
Dollars you
at some part of the chain was crypto. You can't get rid of crypto, for heaven's sake.
No,
but
no, no.
but
we're
if you're
talking about
looking
what
for
we're
stored value,
regulating here.
I mean, I can give you mortgages. I mean, we can go talk about property. And by the way, the Securities and Exchange Commission said crypto is a commodity. I just think this is a
That's what
jumble. And
I've
I
been
don't
saying to
understand
you.
how he's
I
going to
have been
regulate
saying
it.
that, by the way, to you
Yeah.
for the last 6 years after I sat through a whole summer of this whole hearing about crypto. And I have said it once, I said it twice. I think everybody else in the room has probably heard me say it. It is a commodity. It is not dollars. It does not have financial value. We called it, the banking department called it Beanie Babies.
Yeah, that's what it goes.
Remember the Beanie Baby
Babies when it comes
discussion?
across the New York
It's
Stock
it's a
Exchange.
commodity. And all I know is why I would never do crypto, because as someone who his family made its money in a commodity, I would not want to hold something that the value is only what somebody else perceives it to be, that it's a commodity that is not a commodity. It has no tangible thing. It's not silver, it's not gold, and certainly not aluminum.
Could be plastic.
Okay, so I at this point, I don't think we really can help you with your answers. You feel like you're chasing your tail, and we understand you'll.
I just
you'll
don't.
vote-
I'm
you'll
just
vote
not
against
seeing
it.
the need for the business.
I got you. Fair enough. Okay, so you'll work on getting that
go
amendment.
do it
So we're
right when I get
we'll-
back.
We'll end this subcommittee.
Or we could just replace, we could just,
We'll add it. It's a separate amendment because because that's stored. That's not in this amendment now, right? So that'll be a second amendment.
It'll be, just so I'm clear, just a new amendment with everything all
Just
together.
The only thing that amendment is going to be is that stored. What does the R say? It's the definition, stored value, and we just want to say put it saying this does not include digital.
just reference the exemption that's already there.
Yep.
So somebody can follow it through. Okay?
Yep,
Just reference
understood.
the exception. Perfect.
Okay.
Love that.
Yep.
It's not. Okay.
Killed that one.
So at this point, we're just going to we'll set this aside, and we'll take up both amendments tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, we'll make you come back tomorrow. I'm sure you had better things to do, but thank you, guys. Yes, please schedule another subcommittee. At this point, might as well go ahead and do that for 1:15. 1:15, and then exec session at 2. Oh, I just suspend the exec. I don't have to do anything. Perfect. I just have to have notice about subcommittees. Okay, so you could say, so if you can go quick in 12:30, tell her to do 12:30. Yeah.
That's lunchtime.
It won't be lunch tomorrow.
Right. Hopefully we get everything done and we all go out to lunch and I'll buy.
Whoa.
Okay?
Now
Get
we're
it all
talking.
done.
Now we're talking.
Okay. All right, last but not least, condos. Well, I did this again. I sent her out of the room.
Oh, what?
The amendment for 1129, do we have an amendment for it? Or do we? You're in the room, so I guess you care about condos. I know Heidi.
Representative Herbert, could I have the bill back for the file, the one I gave you?
The amendment?
No, the bill, the
bill.
32 pages.
1241?
Yep. Thank you.
You need the amendment?
It's, I think I have it in here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's.
It's fine. You're just driving, you're following along, right? You're just with rats and following. Yeah. Who was it? Somebody's mother. Jody. Followers, people. But I always say that way back when the bank department, was I'm a senior moment. She always was in the committee room. But okay, I will try my best here. So this is not that we passed a lot of. No, this was. It'll come to me in a second. As soon as I walk out the room, the name will come to me. So what we're going to talk is this is allowing condominium associations to have proxies, because that was the big one of the issues is getting condo members to show up, and the big issue was to clarify that the proxy it was not a generic proxy, that it had to be specific, the actual motion, actual issue, and it had to be up and down, and so theoretically this amendment takes care of that. What Heidi worried about was that we took out timeshares. So I will move to pass. Yes.
I'm on this committee.
Yeah.
It's
business.
If I remember, when the bill was introduced, it was Representative Almy and
Correct.
Representative Infantine. And Representative Infantine, I think, was sort of against passing the original version of the bill.
Correct. He's okay with this amendment.
That was my question. Thank you.
Yes. And they're looking for people who want to join the oversight board. Condos are like the plague. Okay. Okay, so Representative Hunt, second by Representative Burrows, moves to pass on the amendment number. Oh, okay, that's, all right, never mind. Who is on this committee?
I think I am.
McAleer is on, and Cole's on. Yeah, so McAleer, because he's a Dem. Yes, you are.
Business.
Believe it or not, you're on condos. Yeah, this is business. Okay, so it does include Spear, does include Herbert.
Grassy's not here, and Daxler's not here.
Right,
Everybody else is here.
okay. Okay, so,
David is on this committee.
Yes, Ammon is on the subcommittee. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Representative Hunt, seconded by Representative McAleer. Moves ought to pass on amendment number 0871. Okay? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none? All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Representative Hunt. Seconded by Representative, unless somebody else wants to be a condo king. Moves ought to pass as amended. And okay, all those in favor on the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're good to go. And that's it, right? Okay. So. All right. So tomorrow we'll start at 10, and we'll do, these. Technically, we have the motion is to go into exec session. What I'll probably do is we have unfortunately have time specific on when these subcommittees are going to meet, so we'll exec everything that we can until up to that time specific. Then we'll recess the exec session, take up the amendments, these two amendments, or whenever the timing of those two amendments, and then go back into exec session, and then hopefully we'll have everything all done tomorrow. And then blurbs, executive, committee reports, I am trying to write down, this time I have done it, but and other times I've been a bad boy and wasn't writing names down. So, but we'll try to stay on top of it.
Part of the problem is I don't always hear who gets assigned, so.
The policy's been whoever makes the motion.
And therein lies the other problem. I don't remember.
Right. Right. Well, that's all the more reason why I need to make sure that I have it done. I'll try to. I'm gonna have my homework done with all the ones we've done and do a spreadsheet like we usually do, which unfortunately I didn't do this last time.
You can have access to this one. I've been keeping track of who's making the motion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to send me that? Can you send me? Can you send it to me? Yeah, last week.
I'll
Did you update from what we actually ended up doing?
This is what we talked about in exec last week. I can do tomorrow and then send you everything.
Okay. Yeah, just send it as an Excel file. So I can pull it up.
Carrie, 1365, today's bill, you made the motion, so you'll be writing the blurb, the report.